Have you seen any starter homes for sale lately? Neither have I. Hello, and welcome to the Who Killed the Starter Home podcast. My name is Marina Rapina. I'm an architect and developer in New Jersey, working to bring starter homes back from the brink of extinction. On this podcast, we usually focus on housing policy, but we're taking some time to host special conversations with candidates running for New Jersey's 12th congressional district. While our listeners outside of New Jersey may not care about this specific election, they may be fascinated to hear that we have 17 courageous people putting themselves in the spotlight and offering their vision and ideas for the future of their country. Housing issues are inevitably coming up, so we aren't straying too far off topic. In this episode, I spoke with Squire Servance, an attorney and healthcare leader who plans to bring an entrepreneurial mindset to Congress. Our conversation centers on how his experience as a practicing lawyer and business owner informs his vision for the 12th congressional district. Squire shares his perspective on healthcare and childcare reform, rethinking the path to career success for future generations, and understanding of AI and gig economy. We also discuss the need to balance government oversight with the room for innovation and growth. Ultimately, he argues for a leadership style rooted in negotiation across the aisle to get meaningful work done for the people. Please note that the views expressed by the candidate are his own and do not necessarily reflect the opinion of this podcast. Given the nature of these long-form interviews, we're not able to independently fact-check every claim made during this conversation. We encourage listeners to research the candidates and the issues as we approach the primary. We would like to hear what you think about this conversation, or if you have any ideas for how to bring the starter homes back from the brink of extinction, send us a note at starterhomepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining us today on our podcast. I appreciate the time. And you probably didn't see me in the crowd, but I was at a PCDO endorsement meeting, and although it's wonderful to see 17 candidates running, that's very exciting, but it also ends up being that each person doesn't get a lot of time to say what they really believe in, or kind of for people to get to know them. So the hope is that we can have a longer conversation for you to really share kind of more in depth what you're thinking about, what you care about. So when people are deciding between the exciting slate of 17 candidates, they could listen and get to know you a little bit better. So with that, I'm hoping you could tell us a little bit about your story and what brought you to this adventure of running for Congress.
I know my wife says I'm crazy. Uh, but no, thank you for having me. Yeah, the PCDO event was so many people that I think we had 4 minutes to talk each for the entire time.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me on this platform and being able to share a little bit more about my background experiences and really what led me to running. But yeah, so look, I'll just start maybe a little bit about who I am. I think I'll start with the important stuff. Like I'm a father of two beautiful girls. They're in first and second grade. I'm a husband. I am an attorney by training, and I'm a healthcare leader. And I also like to say I'm a man of faith, right? That's just who I am, grounded as a person. I I think we are in a historic moment in this country. I've went and did an exploratory committee for weeks, talked to hundreds of people before even announcing. And I think it was clear that a lot of people were concerned about the rights that people had fought for years are slowly and surely being chipped away. And that the moment now is calling for principled leadership that's grounded in service, I'd say. I am, you know, I'm not a politician. Um, I do say I am a career servant leader, though, both in my personal and professional life. My aim as a candidate and hopefully as a congressman is to bring new, fresh ideas to the forefront, innovative legislative approaches, and a commitment to building a broad coalition, so that we ensure that everyone in the district and the laws that are being passed um, get the benefit of what's out there. I've seen in just professionally and working in healthcare and life sciences how federal policy impacts people's lives. Um, on a day-to-day basis, like drug pricing, access to care, ensuring that innovation meets the get to the people that need it the most. But I've also seen how progress really happens, and I think progress happens when people listen first. You, particularly as a representative, you listen first, but then you have to bring people together across differing ideas to get to a point where hopefully the outcome of any legislation or any federal policy benefits everybody. Everyone's not going to get what they want, but you're fighting for everything. But the goal is to work across the aisle to get things, to get meaningful legislation passed that benefits everybody, not just one party or the other. And so that's my hope, and my aim for running. I'm very passionate about healthcare and affordability, and obviously that's one of the we can maybe get into that later about why I did an exploratory committee and first. But my focus is bringing healthier, more affordable communities. Um, Building that here and across the state.
Wow, shows how much a politician I am. I didn't know there was such a thing as exploratory committees, but uh, it sounds like your primary passion is it going to be healthcare?
Yeah, I think I spent my 15, 16 years of my career in that space. That is where I have my own personal company that I run. It's centered around health equity, and but when I say health equity, I think people have to understand that it's broader than just healthcare, access to healthcare. 80% of one's health is dictated by their zip code, right? And so it doesn't matter what drugs you take, it doesn't matter the access to care, insurance. 80% of your health can be predicted on stuff other than that, other than the health stuff. It's access to education, economic opportunities to strengthen your community, the environment, like how polluted it is, affordability of housing and crime. Those things really go into um, how long people live. And so, yes, I may be known as that's my experience has been in healthcare and life sciences, but um, I think the critical thing is my goal is to try to help people live longer. But that means you have to tackle education, you have to tackle economic opportunities, and make sure everyone has access to these opportunities in the district. And so my hope is, the areas that I see kind of present in this district, separate from the economics, and it's people want someone to stop some of the unconstitutional abuses of power coming out of the administration. I think top of mind for a lot of people was what we see with ICE. My kids go to school in Princeton, and we got the email saying there's a shelter in place
I got the same
because
email. Mm-hmm.
I'm home and I see this, you get a little nervous. Um, but they're doing it because there's ICE agents doing raids at Community Park Elementary School around the corner. And so people are sensitive to that and want that addressed now. But I think people also want address housing and affordability and health access to healthcare and reducing not just access to healthcare, reducing the cost of healthcare. These are the things that are important in the district. So while my background is healthcare, I think it's my focus is broader.
And what I find also very intriguing is your background is as a entrepreneur, right? And you mentioned that you have your own business. So how and that your hope is to bring new ideas to Washington. any sort of sneak peeks of what do you think, what would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it comes across a variety of like maybe we start with um, the entrepreneur aspect, and maybe somewhat ties into education. Let's start there. I think we need a stronger, um, a more seamless process for like people that are going into the gig economy, right? Like, how do we expand access to them to make sure they have the full benefits, 401ks and things like that? Let's think through. We have so that a core place where individuals can go to one stop shop and understand all the benefits that are coming by. Entrepreneurs would love that. Entrepreneurs would love that. Let's talk through. I think we need to have stronger policies around not just pouring money into four year universities. Now, look, I'm on the board of Rutgers, and but I think we need to double down on apprenticeships, trades, entrepreneurship. Partnerships with community colleges. These are the things that are going to, I think, strengthen our community from an economic opportunity standpoint. So I think more money needs to be poured into those types of programs. Um, and look, I haven't, you know, I've seen people. I went to law school and business school and all that stuff, but I don't think you need to have all these degrees to live a great life, to move up into the middle class or even the upper class. You don't. And I think the more people understand that, I think the stronger we'll be as a company, not a company, as a country, and strengthening our economy. But when we talk about other new ideas, like going to housing, for example, affordable housing, and you're an architect, so I'm sure this is like one of your will. So hopefully I don't get ahead of my skis on because you're probably way more well versed than me in this area.
No, we love hearing this. This is a housing podcast, of
Right.
course. Yes.
So
Hmm.
so I think you want to find ways to address affordability. And one of the big ways you could do it from a federal level is, and I call it the big audacious plan. It's like, hey, how about the state might not like it, but I mean, I think at a high level, but I think the communities will. But let's tie um, infrastructure grants and proposals and dollars that are coming from the government grant to to expanding and enforcing the affordability policies that are in the state. Let's tie some of these things to making sure there's some consistency across the permitting across the woods of 546 municipalities in the district. Like, if we want to have some big movement in this space and affordability, we need to build more homes, and we need to do that in a way um, that helps everybody, not just a few. And so those are things like that. Obviously, there's things like the increased vouchers, and that's not the new thing. Maybe let's stop discrimination based off of race and gender and religion. I think that'll help as well. But we need to come up with some big ideas to address some of these issues in the state. I look at education. Maybe this is not is somewhat new, but I believe in universal pre-K. I think our children are starting behind the rest of the world, right? Because a lot of people don't have access to pre-K, and that doesn't even account for what happens between 0 to 3, right? But at least let's start 3, 4. Make sure that our children can begin studying and begin learning and advance their career and get a strong education, good grounding. Look, like I said, I have 2 young kids. So it's like, we talk about affordability, but childcare, that's a second mortgage for a lot of folks, and that's tough. Like, how do we ensure we have resources for working families that don't have the ability to leave their job at 2:30 and pick their kids up? And like, how do you make sure that these individuals, these constituents, um, have the ability to support their family and put their kids in the best position to be successful in the future? So those are the things that I think about daily, and then I'm advocating for hopefully some strong solutions to address these gaps.
Yeah. Well, while we're on the subject of education, it's really interesting that during COVID, it became really clear, kind of getting to what you said, that kids in school are not just providing pure, here you're learning arithmetic, but what it was also providing is childcare, right? That if my kid is not at school but is at home on the computer, then I can't go to work,
Yep.
right? So, what do you think is that then the role you think of the federal government to provide childcare, or is it like, for example, in Princeton, we do have universal pre-K, right? Everybody who lives in Princeton qualifies for a pre-K program. So is that something? And I think it's a state program, right?
I think it's a state program, but I don't think everyone gets in. Like I think there are qualifications. So maybe Princeton is such that everyone gets in, but I don't think that's. Sometimes there's a lottery because
There are
the
not enough
districts
spots.
there's not enough spots, right? I don't think you should be dictator. And I think the country I don't know, we spend trillions on defense, right? Keeping America safe, and I think we need to keep America safe, but and we also need to think about the future of our children. And so I think a lot of this is just prioritizing dollars. It's not like, do you think, I don't think we need a federal daycare. No. Do I think the federal government can support the states and the programs to ensure that every state can provide access to universal pre-K for its children? Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's continue on that thought. So let's say you're in Congress and here you are representing New Jersey, New Jersey's 12th district, right? And how would you go about convincing people that, universal pre-K is the thing to be doing right now?
So, look, I've spent a good portion of my career as an attorney. I spent a lot of time negotiating deals and contracts and what have you. And the way you as part of that, it is one party has a position, another party has a secondary position. Underlying that is the benefit of the people, and the goal is to bring people together across differences around the table and come up with a win-win-win for everybody, right? And that's what I've been doing great majority of my career. And I think the process is the same. It's at a higher level, and there's a lot more sensitivities and public pressures and mics in people's faces to do that. But I think at the core, it's the same. And so I think you have to find commonality amongst a Republican colleagues, right? Um, you can't diminish the positions, and you just can't. You have to come to the table and say, all right, well, I get your position. Please understand mine. Let's figure out a way. If we both want kids to have access to our kids to have a better future, there's going to be a middle ground to do that, and let's have a discussion. Now, look, I'm for progress, not perfection. You obviously you aim for perfection, but you got to take concrete steps to to get there. And so you're not going to get everything on the first go, but that doesn't mean you don't try for these things. And I think you just have to work across the aisle, bring people together, and have these tough discussions. Because at the end of the day, look, CD12, it's from majority Democrat, but there's still hundreds of thousands of Republicans. You can't negate their point of view, even though it's a Democrat representing the district. And so you have to kind of be mindful and bring different views to the table and make sure you get something that benefits everybody.
So, continuing on the theme, I'll ask you, I don't know if there's an answer to this question, but so I have kids in high school. I know your kids are in elementary school. I'm in a little bit of a different stage of life. So, my kids, and this is going back to your comment that we don't all need to go to college. I am kind of in a conundrum that for many years we told kids that if you work really hard and you study and you do all the right thing and you play whatever game you're playing after school, then you're going to get into college and it's going to be a great job waiting for you. And
Ah,
right now, it feels like that promise is kind of not working.
right.
And I have a kid in high school who is starting to, his question is, well, do I need to go to college? I'm going to spend all these, hundreds of thousands of dollars on this education. Is it, could I spend this money better? And, both my husband and I, who, have multiple advanced degrees, we're petrified, like, oh,
Right, right.
right. But, like maybe, if I were to take all that money and invest it and start
It,
a business, and
it it's
we're
a
like
different
horrified.
it is a different time. Like, so look, I'm in that boat, right? Like, so I'll put it, I mean, I'll show my age. I'm 43. And I remember when Facebook first started. I don't know when they launched. I remember like Facebook, YouTube, all these were new at the time. They created all new industries. This tech space, I mean, technology was out there, but social media didn't exist. Now you have billions and dollars and trillions of dollars in market cap for these types of companies. So, um, and that took an idea from entrepreneur people that dropped out of college to advance these things. Um, and so I think we have to be mindful of what the landscape is and where the future is heading. Like I said, I don't think you need to to get a 4-year degree to be successful. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, I think it takes like having started a company, um, you know, it was less of my technical skills that I've learned and more of grit, soft skills, grit, resilience, being persistent, being overly responsive. Those were the skills that got my company over and helped raise money and be successful. Um, and now look, I think some of those skills you can learn in college. I think you learn some of those outside of the classroom and student groups and student, but you can get a lot of those soft skills. So I think look, everybody's path is going to be different. I think AI is going to change the landscape, and there's going to be a whole uh, flurry of new industries that kind of pop up out of that. I'm not saying no one should go to college, but I think the time when that college was a requirement to be successful, I think it's going away. I think you're also going to see more companies, maybe not lawyers, like, but you're going to see more companies saying, "Hey, you don't need a." They used to use the bachelor's as a way to kind of weed people out. I think you're going to see more companies saying, "Hey, you don't need a bachelor's degree. Show me you're good at at X. Show me a skill, and that's going to be what defines whether we hire you or not. Less of whether you have a degree from or multiple degrees from a university in the area. So I think we just have to be flexible. Now I'm saying that I have a 6 and 7 year old. Ask me in 17 years when they're going to college or if they're going to college. Maybe I'll be the same boat, so say but you are. But that's where I think we're at now. I think AI is going to significantly change the landscape of a lot of industries, and there's going to be a lot of entrepreneurs that become wildly successful that come out of that.
Yeah. Well, while we're on the subject, what do you think is the role of the government, and whether it's as it relates to technology, and is it how it relates to kids, how it relates to jobs? What should we as a country, what should our government be doing? I have absolutely no idea. But as a congressman,
Yeah.
assume that would be your job to figure out.
Look, I think Congress, particularly with respect to technology, and I think it's government in general, they're always playing catch up, right? And you have to balance out safety and protecting our kids and our youth and the people with not restricting a technology area before it has the chance to grow and flourish. And so that's the fine line that many politicians have to face. I think the way just government is structured, particularly in Congress, it's meant to be slow. You're always going to be playing catch up with tech that's, how many new iPhones come out every other year? Like they the rate of how technology gets outdated is so fast now that it takes people, and you have that fast rate with the fact that Congress has to vote. You got to get the Senate on board. You have to get the House and Senate. Then you have to go to Congress, get executive approval. That's just a long process. So I think you the country and the government as a whole needs to make sure that there's enough space to let these technology areas grow. But when we do start seeing problems in fake news and misinformation and things like that that are coming out, you need to begin to try to move as swiftly as you can to try to start putting some guardrails in where they weren't there before. I'm not for simply like going out and over regulating a space before it even has a chance um, to to even know what it's going to be. I don't think, because then other countries are going to leapfrog us in these areas. And if you want the U.S. to maintain its lead in innovation, you need to have that balance.
Well, very perfect lead into my next question. And I think in our area here in the 12th district, we have a lot of innovative new ideas happening. And we're also kind of a global hub that attracts people from all over the world who come
Right.
here. They go to college here. They invent new things. As we know, when you listen to who won the Nobel Prize, how many Americans
There was
are.
a Nobel Prize winner at the PCDO. I don't know if you saw that. There was a
I
Nobel Prize winner.
did,
Yeah, yeah,
yes. Oh, I know, like only in the 12th district, we just have, a Nobel Prize winner sitting in the back row. Yeah, here we
yeah.
are. Hi, John. So I think the question is, how do we, and a lot of people who do work in these innovative fields happen to be immigrants. How do we kind of, where do we, and you sort of establish that you don't want to overregulate to make sure that innovation does happen. How do we relate this to attracting, creative, interested, talented people from around the world?
Look, I think we've lost a lot of people over the last year, right? Like I've seen the damage that was done with just withholding NIH dollars or forcing people, National Institutes of Health, they give out a lot of research dollars to universities. And just by the administration holding that up, I've seen it. Europe is recruiting our researchers, China is recruiting our researchers, and they're leaving. And so the question is, what do we want America to be? Do we want us to be a leader in innovation and the new industries that are coming out in tech and clean air, clean technology, and biotech, or we don't? And if we do want to maintain that leadership status, there are things that we have to make sure that we are welcoming to all, that it's not that we have the ability for people to come in at the ground level and work their way up and build themselves up by their bootstraps to achieve so quote unquote American dream. Um, we need to have these things in place to ensure that that can be the case for this country. Um, I think we want that. My personal opinion, I think we want to maintain that. And so there are, those forward-looking industries that we think are going to be doing well. I think we need to be doubling down and making sure we can recruit talent from across the world, that we can make sure that these technologies can get the dollars and the funding that they need to be successful. Um, and I think right now, as a country, we're probably going the wrong way in that regard. Because, like I said, I've seen it primarily in the biotech space, where people are leaving the country because and some of it is, I think, some of it is the uncertainty. Like I don't know what Trump is going to say tomorrow. Like, yeah, he's for one thing, the next day it's different, and that uncertainty, can wipe out several years of someone's research. You can't have that when technology is going so quickly. So I think, yeah, as a country, we need to do better. I think some of that is somewhat tied to the current administration, but as a congressman, the goal would be to provide some oversight and accountability to the current administration so that he can't do some of the things he's been doing over the last year.
Yeah, yeah. I have certainly heard the same stories in our area of people when they have different job offers. It used to be everybody wanted to stay in the US, and now they're like thinking twice about it, right? It's very, very depressing. So, do you think I really struggle with this question that we had Democrats in power for so many years and we were not able to, or maybe we didn't think it was important to pass comprehensive immigration reform. And here we are now in this situation. Do you have any thoughts on what you would do? Do you think it's important? What kind of immigration reform would you like
Yeah,
to see?
yeah. Look, I think it's vitally important to do it, and I think absolutely this is a number of administrations missed the boat, both on the Democrat and Republican side. Like Trump first, plan, his first presidency didn't do what he's doing now, right? But that the problem is because no party collectively figured out a way to address it in a meaningful way. The president has somewhat carte blanche at current moment to do what he wants. He has the Senate, the Congress, uh, the the Supreme Court, and he has the ability to kind of dictate on the executive side. And so this is the situation that the country's put itself in, right? And I think both parties need to come together to address it. Now, in saying that, there was a comprehensive plan that was approved during Biden's administration that Trump specifically didn't want to pass because, my understanding is he just didn't want to give Biden a win, which would have addressed some of these issues. Now, I think the most immediate thing you mentioned, um, that like, okay, so what does that look like? I think first we just need to address ICE. Like, I don't think ICE should. I'm not one of those guys like, hey, abolish ICE, abolish ICE. I'm like, well, look, let's. I think it needs to be restructured. Um, I think we need to first, they need to stop getting funding until they agree to not. Let's stop racial profiling and religious profiling people, is making arrests. Let's not wear masks. Let's have a common national standard on enforcement. Let's have warrants. Let's do these things that uphold our Constitution and address these things. Now, I think ICE, and when I say reorganized, look, we need to enforce our immigration laws. But you have two camps. You have the civil side, as someone that's been living here for 20 years and their kids grew up and they're paying taxes, and then you have, the criminal syndicates and things that you're trying to address. I think ICE is currently structured, um, even with I think with my implementation that I would suggest, like, that's the criminal side. We need to create a whole new. If we're going to do civil enforcement, um, that's not ICE. Like that's you shouldn't, and we shouldn't be snatching people up in schools, hospitals, in churches, um, for doing these things. So I think that's like step one. I think we need to have a comprehensive plan to allow people that have lived here and worked here and paid taxes and grew up and or were born here or they were brought here as a an infant. There needs to be a pathway to citizenship. I think we need to expand the number of immigration judges. I think we have a significant backlog that needs to be addressed. I think we need to we kind of reform our asylum laws. I look at, you know, what the current administration will do is if something happens in this country and it's tied to someone affiliated with a country, automatically bans the entire country from asylum, right? Like these are, it's a lot of times it's unassociated with people they're usually the people that are coming over are trying to get away from hurt, harm, sentient death from their current government. And so I think we need to have a strong look at and make sure that our asylum reforms are humane and equitable across the board. So those are a few things that I think we need to do. I think we need to address ICE immediately, and then we need to have that comprehensive immigration reform that has eluded a lot of the presidencies over the last several decades.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, well, now that we're talking about our relationship to the rest of the world, uh, it, let's assume somehow we will be able to pass comprehensive immigration reform that will stop the horrendous abuses that are going on and at the same time attract people from all over the world who will help our economy grow and help us invent incredible new things. But what is our relationship as United States relates to the world? What are your thoughts about our foreign policy?
Well, our foreign policy, we're treating our allies as enemies. We're trying to take over lands. We are using tariffs as instead of diplomacy as a means to achieve things. Um, I'm not a fan of that. I think you have to lead with diplomacy, right? You um, to move the ball forward in any meaningful way. Um, I'm not. Trump's got us out of. He looks like he's trying to take us out of NATO. He's trying to buy Greenland. Like I don't understand, and I wish I like if I knew what he was trying to accomplish, because sometimes I can't. I'm like, so we bail out Argentina, we take over, we take out, someone in Venezuela. Like I don't understand Trump's foreign policy doctrine, and I track it, and it seems like it's whatever he wakes up with that day he wants to do, he goes after it. So I think, look, I think we're unfortunately Trump is resetting a lot of the international alliances. I think after his presidency, a lot of goodwill capital that America has built up is going to be gone because a lot of companies are no longer going to rely on the U.S. Uh, as strong trading partners or consistent trading partners. You start tariffing China, they're going to go start partnering with Russia or whatever other countries, and that's where they're getting their dollars from. Um, and yeah, I think we're going to look back on this and see that we're going to question what we got out of all of these different doctrines and policies that Trump or executive orders that Trump has executed, and I don't think it's going to be a net positive.
Yeah, yeah. Well, kind of an interesting lead to what would you do? Like if you had
Right. If I was
if you
president, right? No, no.
well, if you had sort of like how would you see the relationship between the US and the world? Should we be the global superpower or is that time has passed?
Well, I don't think we should be
I
the
don't know if this is a
no, no.
fair
Look,
question.
yeah, I'm like, well, because look, this executive branch usually they dictate a lot of foreign policy. I think the Congress, particularly when it comes to like war powers and taking over different countries and arresting presidents from different countries or trying to buy our neighbors, um, I think Congress needs to be consulted, and I feel like the current administration is skirting that. And as a congressman, that's I would we'd have to use our oversight power to ensure that that gets nipped in the bud. So that's what I would do and I think overall, from a foreign policy standpoint, me personally, I think we have to lead with dignity. We have to lead with protecting human life, civilian life. I think we have to lead with um, putting America in the best position to be successful for the next generations. And we can't be so short term as I'm trying to make more money, right? I worked with a number of companies. I've seen other companies, not even just the ones that I've worked at. Or, you know, their approach is well, oftentimes the stock market dictates you. Sometimes you need to operate with short term, but you have to have long term thinking. And I feel like the current administration is very short term in its approach, and that's why I really believe in 3 or 4 years when we look back, we're not going to see that we got much benefit out of this, and we're going to see that the world has significantly restructured so that the power that America once had is no longer there. Well, no longer there in the way it was before Trump. Uh, and I think that's unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah, and I think what I'm wondering as you're starting to talk about sort of future planning, do you have any thoughts about again, because I have kids or because I work in the world of housing and economic development, I always wonder, how do we leave sustainable future for our kids, right?
Right.
How do we leave this place better than we found it? And now we're backing out of a lot of sustainability and environmental protection issues. What are your thoughts on, how do we leave this, what we found, in better shape for our kids?
I think first we gotta win back the House this November. Then we could take back me and Democrats take back the presidency in 2 years. I think that'll help. And um, and I'm saying that specifically because I don't want it's not like a knock on all Republicans, but if someone that comes up with the same mindset of Trump is trying to run, like we can't have that for another 4 years or 6 years. Um, and so I think it starts there because that's the only way it's going to have any meaningful impact, right? Trump has been he's been so effective of how he's been operating with respect to, like, if you look at what he's doing in the environment, because he has the executive branch. He can he can say don't enforce these environmental laws, and they won't enforce it. He can cut so many people at different agencies so that even if they want to enforce, they don't have the resources to enforce the laws, right? He can do an executive order so that where companies see directionally where Trump is heading, and they will begin acting even though it's not legislation, right? These are all tools in the toolkit that now hopefully Dems see as 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 tools that I think we need, that when we take back the House, we take back the presidency, we will help level set um, some of these policies. And I think that's the only way we're going to leave better, because I think we're currently going in the wrong direction. But I think it it comes with us winning our elections and putting great people in office that are grounded in service and listening and ensuring that they are being strong representatives for the constituencies in our district. And I think that's where we need to start.
That's always a good starting point. So, is there anything that I didn't ask or you would like to share in addition that we haven't gotten to? Because I think we're kind of at the tail end of our conversation.
All right.
So, anything that is, I really wish we could do more of X.
Oh man, look, I I know we talked about healthcare, housing, and education, and environment, but I think we just need to make sure that, particularly in CD12, we're putting in someone that's going to bring new, fresh perspectives and new ideas. And look, there's a lot of people, a lot of strong candidates running. A lot of them aren't elected officials, um, and a lot of them have. I'll put myself in there as that comes with new, fresh ideas and perspectives that's grounded in making sure we're doing what's best for our community. And that's for me, again, that's why my tagline is healthier, more affordable communities. And my hope is that people, you know, take a look at what we're talking about, and I'd absolutely love everyone's support.
Great. Well, I have one question that I asked friends and neighbors to give me, thoughts for what to ask, because I've been trying to work them in. But one question I thought was so fascinating and so interesting is people asked me to ask if you were to have a second choice, I assume you think you're the best choice
Number
for
one,
this job.
right?
Who would be your second choice? Who out of
Ooh,
I thought that's such an interesting question.
you know, I don't know, right? I don't know. Look, there's a number of good candidates out there, so I'm gonna do the thing where I don't give an answer to this. I'll make sure because I don't have. I don't have an answer to that. I think. I'll give several names that I think will be strong. I think Dr. Hamaway, right? I think he'd be good. I think Verlina or Chanel, Verlina Reynolds, Assemblywoman Verlina Reynolds Jackson, or Chanel Robinson, I believe, Commissioner. Um, they'll do well. Um, but I obviously think, I think my positioning in that my background is probably maybe that's why I feel like I'm probably the best one for this role.
Well,
But look, we
you
have a
wouldn't be
strong,
running
yeah, I
if you
wouldn't be
didn't think
running
that.
exactly. I wouldn't be running with it. But look, we have lot of strong candidates um, that are out there, and I think we're blessed to have um, such a great pool of great candidates. And yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I'm really grateful that we have like we finally have choices,
yeah.
right?
Well, Sam, like Professor Wong, right? Like, yeah, we have great choices in this race.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. Squire, I really, really appreciate being here with us today, and thank you, and best of luck, and hope to talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.